Welcome back once again to howtocookgreatfood.com. If you haven't already, click that button and subscribe to our channel. On the menu today, I'm just going to make a nice beef stew. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Let's do it. In there, I've got some oil. I'm using a sunflower oil. I've got the heat on. You can use any oil you like. If you wanted, you could use olive oil or canola, entirely up to you. Here, I've got my beef. Cubed beef, a stewing beef. You don't need a really kind of expensive cut. This is like 1 kg, which I think is about £2, or I think it's 2.2 pound. Here I've got a few bay leaves, throw them into the mix. I've got some black pepper. Let's be fairly generous with this pepper. I'm going in with some salt and some chopped garlic. Now, quite a lot of garlic. That's finely chopped garlic. That's about, in teaspoons, 3 heaped. We want it nice and garlicky. Simply, just throw this around, give it a little mix. I'm on a kind of medium heat. What we want to do, this is just stewing beef, by the way, so it's not going to be a lovely tender cut, but we're going to make it tender by stewing it in the right way for the right amount of time. Let's get a lid on, medium heat, medium or just below. Let's cook that, stir it every now and then. Let's cook that for about 6 to 7 minutes. Okay, let's take a look. And a bit of steam out of there. Watch it go on the camera. There you go. Bubbling away really nicely. Got liquid come out of it. Is it nice and tender? No way. It's nowhere near that. What we're going to do now is I'm going to add water. If you want, you could add a stock. I don't really like stock, as you may know, but well, certainly not those stock cubes. I'm really not a fan of them. So I'm just using plain water. Water lets me control exactly what's going on. I mean, those stock cubes and that stuff is pretty, I mean, they're pretty disgusting, to be honest. It's full of salt. If I make my own stock, which I often do, then I'm happy to use that. But otherwise, I just like water. We can control what's going on. Okay, so we fried that for a few minutes, like 5 or 6 minutes. Got that nice flavour going on in there, that garlic, the seasoning is doing its job. Now, the meat's kind of taken that, but it's not tender. It really, really isn't tender at all. Now that water, or stock if you prefer, is gonna act as our tenderizer. So, bring that to the boil, and then simmer that, I would say for about 8 to 10 minutes. Give it a stir every now and then. Back soon. Okay, here we go. There's going to be a lot of steam now, real lots of steam. I really don't want it to go onto the lens, so hold on a second, guys. That should be okay. So it's been simmering away for about 10 or 12 minutes. Still a little bit tough if you ask me. What I'm going to do now is, with the lid off, I'm going to turn the heat right up. I want it to evaporate a little bit. I mean, it's not all going to go, no chance, because there's too much liquid in there, but I just want to kind of cook it for another 5 minutes, I reckon. Full blast. Lid off. See you then. There you go. Like I say, not all that liquid's going to go, but we've got rid of a little bit, and we're still working towards getting our beef really nice and tender. Okay, next up, I'm going to drop in, I mean, at this point you can put any herb and spice you like in. I'm going to go for a little bit of thyme. And here I've got some sage, which is a really, I think, underrated and underused herb. It's really lovely. I really love sage. But hey, put in now some rosemary. Put anything you like in, really. This is just what I prefer today with this dish. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop in some chopped onions. In they go. Using red, use white if you want. And I'm going to put in some potato now, but check this potato out. It's really, really small. Cut it really small. Just one decent sized potato. What I want is I want that potato to break down. I'm not going to use any flour in this. Some people put flour into their stews to thicken them, but I don't really like that. If you just cut these nice and small, they'll cook and kind of create a little bit of a thickness for us. And of course, I've got some whoppers here that I'm going to put in. I'm going to chop them nice and big and go in a bit later. Right, turn down the heat because it was on full blast. Not a simmer, above a simmer, lid on. I'm going to cook that for about another 6 minutes. Right, let's pop our head in now. Let's steam that. This is coming on beautifully. At this stage I'm going to start to add some vegetables. You need to add the vegetables, and depending on what you're going to add, you can add, I'm going to add just potatoes and carrots to this. If you're adding celery or other root vegetables, swede, turnip or whatever, which all work really well, you need to add them at the stage where they're going to cook. So my carrots are going to cook faster, slower than my potatoes. So I'm going to get them in now. And again, nice and chunky, irregular cuts. In they go. At this point, I'm going to add a nice bottle of red wine. Not the whole bottle. Let's start to get a bit in there. I'm going to add quite a lot of this red wine. I'm not going to put it all in now. We're going to keep slowly adding as we go along. Don't use cheap, horrible wine to cook with. Well, what I always say is, if you won't drink it, don't use it for cooking. So, I mean, I see lots of recipes like that. Oh, use really cheap wine. Just, taste it. If it tastes okay, use it. If it doesn't taste okay, why would you put it in your food? So there we go. Some red wine in. Now, this is not a beef bourguignon or a boeuf bourguignon for several reasons. One, we're going to put potatoes in it. It doesn't have potatoes on it. It hasn't got bacon in it or lardons, which beef bourguignon has. And it hasn't got the pearl, very small kind of pearl onions they're called, or tiny shallots. This is a beef with some red wine. Certainly not that. Also, we're only cooking it on here, and beef bourguignon would be put in the oven with casserole. They put it inside an oven for a couple of hours. This is a much quicker version, even though it does seem quite long. So my carrots are in. It's starting to thicken up a little bit. As you can see, the water's leaving the pan. We've replaced that with some red wine. Those potatoes will break down, thicken slightly. Lid on, fairly low heat. I'm going to be back in 5 minutes to have my potatoes. Let's take a look now. It's looking great. The carrots are not cooked. There's no way they're cooked yet, but we're getting there. I'm now ready to add my potatoes, and I'm putting them in nice and chunky. I want them real chunky. In they go, a little mix. Now you can add, like I say, any vegetables you like. Root vegetables work really well in this. You could put some mushrooms in. You could even put some tomatoes in if you wanted now. Either a can of tomatoes maybe, or some fresh tomatoes. What I'm going to do is put some more red wine in. I like to add the wine slowly. It doesn't just burn off all the flavour. If you put it all in at once, you lose the flavour, or the alcohol, I think, basically burns off. Wow, it's looking fantastic. Lid back on, we're on a low heat. Going to cook that for another 5 minutes. Then we're going to add a drop more of our wine. In we go. Steam up there. Simmering beautifully. Our meat's getting nice and tender now. Our vegetables are still, really hard. Okay, boozers, I'm going back in with a bit more wine. And she goes. So I've pretty much used, well, there's my bottle, 3/4 of a bottle of wine in this. And it's now, we're going to leave it alone. Lid on, nice and slow, low and slow now. I'm going to cook this for about 25 minutes. No need to touch it. Okay, again, let's jump in. We're at the last stage now. There you go. That is looking wonderful. What I'm going to do now, take my knife, drop it into your potatoes. You see that? It's going to fall off. If it falls off naturally, just with gravity, it means it's cooked. If it didn't, it's not. Check out the carrots. Take a look. They're still needing a little bit more of those carrots. Now what I'm going to do is, with the lid off, do this for another 5 to 6 minutes. It will slightly reduce a little bit and thicken up. Not an enormous amount, but a little bit. I've checked that meat. It is supremely tender. It's really good. So all the effort that we've gone to has really made a big difference and really worth it. So just let that steam out a little bit now, about 5 or 6 minutes, low heat. Check it for salt. Check it for pepper if you want. That's pretty much done. I'll just be back then. Okay, I've just turned the heat off. Our potatoes they're not falling apart yet. Yeah, but they're not coming out now. Oh, they are, look, there you go. Off they come. They're beautifully soft. That meat's nice and tender. Our carrots are nicely cooked now, as you can see. It's reduced a little bit. So it's not like a big soup, this. It's kind of, it's got some moisture to it, but it's still nice and chunky in there and just wonderful, with some nice crunchy bread maybe, or some rice. I'm gonna have this with some nice bread. That's it. Hope you enjoy it.